In 1 Peter chapter 5 and reading from verse 6 and including verse 11. 1 Peter chapter 5, and as Peter is getting ready to close his presentation, he says, "Humble yourselves, be therefore under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you." Now notice the significance of verse 7 because of verse 6. Humble yourself therefore under the mighty hand of God. And because he's calling for submission, he now makes a promise, and he gives hope that in that submissive state you can realize that he will exalt you in due time. But because of the state of humility and because of what you're enduring, it has stimulated some cares. So now he says, cast all your care upon him, for he careth for you. And the paradox is there. And really the conundrum is there, because if he cares for you, why am I being humble? And because he cares for you, I'm being humble. Now I gotta cast all my cares of what I'm going through, because I'm under his hand, upon him. Am I dyslexic, or do you see how it goes both ways? I'm in this state because of you, and you're causing me to care. Then you tell me, cast your cares on me, because you care for me. Well, why don't you not have me to have any cares? Then he says, be sober, be vigilant, because now your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. He's looking for somebody to eat. I told him this morning a little story. A big grizzly bear just came up, big grizzly bear. And two fellas were out in the woods, and a big bear came up. And one of the fellas sat down quickly, started taking off his shoes real quick. And the other fella said to him, "Why are you taking off your shoes? You can't outrun the bear." He said, "I'm not trying to outrun the bear. I'm just trying to outrun you." See, Satan can't eat everybody. That's why he's seeking. But I want to say to you, as the children of God, if you see him coming, don't take off your shoes. Stay with me. And let's, two or three who are joined together, then if we agree, then the Lord is in our midst. So if the devil's going to come to devour you, he's got to come over me. And if he's trying for me, I pray he's got to come through you. Taking off your shoes, because you go outrun me. No, we don't want that. God gave us nothing for our backs. He said, resist the devil. Whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. But the God of all grace, who hath called us unto his eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after that ye have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Can somebody say amen? Look at your neighbor and say, it's designed to strengthen you. Touch somebody else and say, you're going to be strengthened after this. The quote was, it was a significant quote, Because oftentimes we are caught up with the externals in our judgment of ourselves. And many times we become extremely competitive in all that we do because we have a proclivity and a tendency to judge ourselves by others. I think it's a human quality, as frail as it may be, that oftentimes we feel superior simply by making comparisons to the people around us. One writer said it like this, and I quote, he said, "He must take a low place before God, who would take a high place before men." And it is suggestive of the fact that oftentimes we seek to become significant by how we treat one another. And oftentimes we judge where we are simply because of what we have accomplished, what we have, and what somebody else might not have. In some instances, because the world sets standards for looks, and we take a look at ourselves and decide that we are superior in our looks to others. Sometimes because of the educational system that we have I almost said endured, but educational system that's been offered to us, we many times just take all kinds of stuff and become extremely proud in our disposition. And it's interesting that Peter would write this because he spent a lot of time in comparing himself to others. In one case, he told the Lord, "Though all men," and isn't that sort of audacious? The young man used the word pugnacious. But it's quite audacious for you to be so significantly caught upon yourself that you can speak for all men. And incidentally, he missed one of the all men because John didn't leave Jesus' side. In fact, he was the only one there at the cross. When Jesus finally said, "Behold your mother, mother, behold your son." And because we have so much time in comparison, we end up in a lot of competition with each other. And we fail to realize, and it's really something about competition. I'll tell you immediately what competition does. Competition looks for the weakness in others to exploit. That's the first thing a competitor does, is he seeks to exploit your weaknesses. If somebody is in union with you, in covenant with you, and they're not competing with you, then they seek to promote your strengths. You need people in your life who aren't seeking to exploit your weaknesses, but rather people who are seeking to enhance and corroborate your strengths. Oh, yes. I've seen people married in competition, seeking to show who was more significant than the other. And anytime you operate in haughty spirits and pride, look for destruction and fall. It's a critical thing because many times we fail to be all that we can be because we're so concerned about the person beside us. And we're so concerned about proving how much better we are than they are, that we spend our lives going round in circles because God has a way of bringing all of us down to our knees. Amen. I don't want to be better than anybody. I just want to be the best that I can be. And it takes away all the stress and it moves us. I've got Joseph on my mind still, remember it too. It takes away all the stress of being envious, and it takes away the hatred and the resentment Because many times when God puts his hand on somebody and he designs the path for their destination, it doesn't always suit you. And sometimes God's working on you. And while he's working on you, you're looking around wondering why you're going through and others are not. I've got news for you. If it is God who is going to do the exalting, and you have to humble yourself before the exalting, then what that is suggesting to me very calmly is that if you're not going through anything, you don't have anything coming. Yes, maybe I should say that again. Somebody ought to tweet that. Since you're in such a mood not to humble yourself, and since you want to be left out of the struggle and left out of the testing, then it suggests to me, and I think we have done that from the pulpit in the last 25 or 30 years. We've expostulated a doctrine that has no biblical significance, and that is everybody, I don't care how much faith you have, and maybe because of the faith you have, God is going to put you and me through something. And if you have enough faith to avoid the something, then your faith has taken you away from what comes after the something. And there's no such faith. Faith is your trust in God no matter what circumstance or situation you're in. When he says humble yourself in verse 6, it's actually in the passive voice. And in the passive voice, it means that the subject of the verb is passive in the hands of God. And that passive voice means that the subject is being worked on by God. It's an interesting dynamic because now God is doing the work. And many times we fail to realize that some things in our lives is being done by God himself. It is he who is orchestrating the change in us because he has a destination for us to arrive at, and he's the one who's working it out in us. What the writer is saying is, unlike me in my early years, I need you now to understand that you need to just submit. Paul calls it hupomone. And that is just to submit yourself without fighting the hand of God. He uses a word here, kratos, when he talks about mighty. And what he's saying is you might as well submit because the hand that's directing you is way much more powerful than you are. So why should you be foolish enough to fight what God is directing in your life? Why don't you hasten the blessing by simply submitting? I wish I could talk to somebody here. Many times, I remember talking to one of my good friends, and I was going through a catastrophe, and I remember his words clearly. He said, why don't you just go on and die? In other words, you're hanging on this cross and you're fighting, and this cross is really to bring you to a place where it changes you. So why are you fighting the change that inevitably has to take place? So why don't you just hasten the program and just go on and say, yes, Lord, instead of resisting the mighty hand? The writer says, submit to the mighty hand, or suffer yourself to be humbled. Oh God, I found something out about humility. I really don't use the word proud, not at all. We can debate whether there's a good pride or not, but I'm not in that debate. I have substituted every word that I have substituted proud for just simply one word, and that's thankful. I'm just thankful to God for my children. I'm thankful to God for what he has done in my life. I'm thankful to God for the city of refuge, because I want to make sure that God understands that I don't think I have a lot to do with the good things that he does. And so I wanted to generate thankfulness. And oftentimes we get so caught up in what we have received, and really we have taken something we have received and we have acted like it is something we have achieved. Can I go over that again? I don't want to miss you in the build out here. I can anytime. I can do that anytime. I can hope anytime. And that ain't the anointing. That's just me. So I want you to understand this, that many times we don't give thanks for what we have received because we think it's something we have achieved. Oh God. And I can tell you that there are many people today who have many degrees and many opportunities who have gone nowhere. And then there are some of us who have not had the opportunities, who have gone distances, not because of what we have achieved, but because of what we have received. And anytime you have received anything from God, don't act like it's something you have achieved. I feel like preaching. We have ruined the church with our health, wealth, and prosperity presentations. And yes, let them get rich and let them be rich. It's fine. I don't mind people being rich. But I want you to understand that God is a God of opportunities. He will open the door of the opportunity, but then you have to be processed to get through it. And the process of humbling was, in this context, the persecution and the suffering of the saint. And what God is saying is, if I have my hands on you like I have it on Joseph, I am not putting you through a process for you to become resentful, but I'm putting you through the process to get you to the destination. And I feel it here. I'm putting you through the process not to destroy you, but I'm putting to the process so that I can strengthen you, establish you, and make you better than you are. I want to have a little talk about this for a minute. The exhortation is followed by the comfort and the hope. And the comfort and the hope, in my evaluation, are interchangeable. I need the hope in order to be comforted. And here is where the hope is. The hope is that I have the expectation of exaltation in the middle of my submission. So I'm literally submitting to the circumstance and the situation because it's being orchestrated by the mighty hand of God. So I'm not fighting what God is orchestrating, but what eases my pain is the hope of what is going to become. I made an example. I'll make it again. Now, Seth has graduated, and in order to graduate, he had to be received into a program. Because he's received into the program does not guarantee the graduation. Between the time of entering into the program and the time of receiving the exaltation, he had to be submitted to a grueling list of study. I look at my kids, and Tiffany in particular, she's more verbal when it comes to what she's going through than my sons. I guess because we've told them to be men and handle your business. And we allowed her the freedom of expressing her womanhood and her femininity. So she has a tendency to talk to her father, and boy, that sounds real verbose. Now, what happens is she gets into the program and she calls me and says how tedious and how tired she is and how sick of this she has become. And I said to her, did you expect them just to hand you a degree? Just to look at you and just give you something because you are sitting in the classroom? I said, for the amount of money I paid for you to go to school in 4 years, I could have done that myself. I could have gone to the black market educational store and picked you up a degree, or just beg one of these schools to give you with an honorary degree that you ain't earned nothing. We just honor you with the degree. Now, the first time you had a test on your job and had to reach for some resources, it would show that you didn't earn anything. You just bought something. I want to tell you this. When your test comes, I'll guarantee you, after God has put you through something, that the devil will know this ain't no honorary degree. This is something you earned. I feel like preaching. See, what we have done over 25 years is giving you the impression that favor means no process. I want to talk to you here. You feel like favor means no process. That favor means no principle. But the truth is, there are certain dispositions and attitudes that bring on favor. And go through the Bible with me and show me one person who has had favor with God who didn't have to go through the process. Show me one, if you will. Show me one. Can anybody bring me one? Everybody who has God's hand on them has to go through the process. Oh God, Jesus bore his cross, the songwriter said, but he didn't bear his cross alone. If Jesus bore his cross, here's what he says to you: if any man were to come after me, let him pick up his cross and follow me. I need you to touch somebody that's sleeping and tell them real quick, you're going to pay your dues. You're going to pay your dues. Anointing ain't coming without paying some dues. You're not going to be anointed unless you've been broken and broken and broken and broken and broken. And if you don't want to be broken, you don't want to be anointed. God, I might as well. It's critical because now I have to have this comfort and this hope. And what the writer is saying to me, first of all, is that humility is prerequisite for exaltation. You're not going to bypass the step of humility. And I'll tell you something about humble. When you're humble, nobody can hurt your feelings. I can hurt your feelings when you're proud. But I'm already down, so you can't bring me down when I'm already down. My feet are already on the ground. So, you can't drop me when I'm already on the ground. No matter how you look at, no matter what attitude you have, I'm already on the ground. You can't hurt my feelings because I've already got my feelings under control. If I got my feelings way out in space, you can shoot it down. But if I'm really humble, you can't put me any lower. Oh God, I feel like dancing on that one. The process then is tedious and painful, and our knowledge of him sometimes intensifies the pain, particularly when we don't understand the processing and when we follow things that don't make sense theologically. Sometimes we feel as if God can remove it. That's why I raised the issue in the opening reading that, all right, right, you care for me. So if you care for me, why not allow me not to deal with any of this? But it is his care for me that puts me in the situation so that I might humble myself to be qualified for the exaltation. Because exaltation is my destination. I've got to cause you to humble yourself, and so I'm humbling you to exalt you. I'm not humbling you to destroy you. I'm humbling you in a process to give you a testimony of how great I am in your life. You know, some people have to break your heart for you to get rid of them. I might as well preach. I ain't gonna trouble nothing. I ain't troubling nobody. The reason they have to break your heart is because you wouldn't break it yourself. But your heart needed breaking to get to the exaltation. So now after they broke your heart and you got rid of them, then your exaltation came. Now you're giving God praise for the heart that had been broken. Because had your heart not been broken, you'd have still been in that situation that was going nowhere. So you give God praise for breaking the heart you wouldn't break in order for God to take you to the place he wants you to go. Humble yourself under the mighty hand of God. And then in the middle of it, we feel now like he can move it. But the lesson is ours to gain. Yes, he puts you in a place. I'm sort of hard-headed. I don't know about you, but I'm sort of hard-headed, and I can be very opinionated at times. It took a little while in my life for me to learn to listen, and I don't think I've mastered it completely yet, because there are times when I'm a quick study and I got it. So, you know, why you keep talking? Because I already got it. But it behoves me to listen and to hear it all out. I heard Solomon put it like this in one of the Proverbs I read recently. You can't answer a matter unless you hear it. So don't start suggesting answers to matters before you hear them. But I had to learn to listen. I had to be forced to listen. And oftentimes your circumstances and your situations force you to listen. And sometimes God, in the process of making you, brings you from the place of favoritism and puts you sometimes in a pit. Think about Joseph as a process right here. He is coming from being the favorite, and he is not understanding why he needs to shut his mouth about his brothers. So because he's the favorite, he can say what he wants, and he can say when he wants to say it, and it doesn't matter how much hatred he's generating. So consequently now, in order to keep him from the resentment of the process, God, because on the other end is the blessing. But in order to keep you from the resentment of the process, he's got to give you some self-time. He's got to bring you to the point where you begin to listen to yourself as you listen to God. Can you imagine being the favorite son and ending up having the boys wanting to kill you? And then in the middle of being killed, one brother rises up and says, let's put him in the pit. Now notice, if you will, the pit is a place of solitaire, and solitaire is a place of self-consideration. See, most of us don't inflect because we're too busy running our lives, and God God has to put us in a place where we will listen. I hope somebody's getting this. I'm going to hoop after a while, but right now I need you to get this, because I see some people in here, and I turn my discernment back up, and my discernment is saying right now that you're in a place of solitaire, and in that place of solitaire you need to start listening. Don't feel bad in the place of being solitude. In the place of solitude, don't feel bad, because you could have been killed. You see, he ended up in the pit, but somebody wanted to kill him. So the pit is a place of reflection and a place of inflection, and it's still a place of praise, because even though I'm in this pit, I could have been dead. Oh God, I feel something pushing. Woo, I'm going to have some church today. And we're going to have a little prayer tonight. If you come, there's no church tonight, because I'm not going to be here by myself while you all watch Cleveland and the Warriors battle. You ain't going to put me in that pickle. And I'm telling you, I'll be right where you are. I'll be right there with you. Just come on, whoever. I'm not going to partisan this crowd. It's critical to understand this, that in order to get to the blessing, he's got to have a qualitative person to receive it. While he is processing the blessing, he has to bring the person or the subject to the blessing to a state of humility. You already got a big head, and if God were to bless you to the enormity he chooses, with your head already that size, you would probably lose the blessing overnight. What he's got to do is process you. I've got to open you up and bring you down, so that when I exalt you, it won't go to your head, because I've been through too much hell already. I've been through too much to allow this to make me uglier, but God is going to make you so beautiful that nothing he gives you can make you ugly. I got to work on this a little bit. Give somebody a high five and say it ain't nothing but a process. Don't go away too far, Pat. It is important, and I found it to be significant, because the resentment because of the process can become an infection that helps to destroy the vessel from receiving the process. And many times you would look at Joseph. I think he's a prime example, because Joseph is a type of Jesus, and that is, Joseph was to protect his brothers, and yet still, if he had resentment because of the process, he would not have achieved his destiny. His destiny is to protect his brothers, but his brothers are the one that's killing him. I wish you'd understand me. So all through the process, I just believe that the pit was a place for him to get it together, because they had just tried to kill him, and they had sold him as a slave twice, once to the Ishmaelites to the Egyptians. So God is using time in the process to help him heal from the initial pain that put him in that place in the first place, or else he's going to bring hatred to the table. But what did he say? You meant it for evil, but I found out this was a process, and God meant it for good. God uses man's evil to bring about his own good. Jesus Jesus looked at the brothers and said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I feel like preaching here. Give somebody a high five. Say it ain't nothing but a process to strengthen you. When you come through this one, I'm telling you, the devil's got to throw something at you that he does not have in his arsenal. Cast all your cares. Oh God, I feel like shouting here. What time is it? Give me a few more minutes. Cast all your cares on him. And it's incidental now that the cares is something that he has brought about. And part of the problem now is that you have now been caught in a place where you have to have some concerns. Your concerns border what you're going through. And your care here is anxiety. It's a word for anxiety. So now I'm in a place that God has put me, that I have now come to anxiety, and it's also used for the word worry. And he says, now I need you to cast your worries. Now I want to use the word worry more than just simply anxiety, even though both of them from a psychological viewpoint are very similar. But worry is to cast the anxieties forward. Anytime you fear, that's one thing, but when you're fearing about tomorrow and the next day and the next day, now you have cast your fears into the future. I want you to cast your cares or your anxiety on me. And the reason I want you to put it on me, God is saying, is because I'm the one whose hands you're under. So while I'm massaging you into what I want you to be, your complaint or your care is to me. Ain't none harm in telling the Lord, Lord, it hurts. Ain't no harm in saying to the Lord, this is rough. Ain't no harm in saying to the Lord, I wish this would hurry up and be over. For him to tell me, hurry up and submit. I don't know. I want, he says, cast it on me. Don't put it to the future, because this is not to your future. If you look at the text, I'll tell you what your future is. Your future is exaltation. I feel like preaching. So what you're going through now, don't act as if it's going to be there always, because what's going to be there later is exaltation. I feel like preaching. So I'm in the pit and I'm in the prison, but that's not where I'm going to dwell. I'm passing through the pit and I'm passing through the prison, but my destination is the palace. I can take the pit, I can take the prison if I can see the palace. So while you're struggling with it, I need you to cast your cares on me. I need you to put them on me, and it's a perfect tense. I need you to do it once and for all. Just put it on me. And the reason I want you to put it on me is because I care for you. Your concern is mine. The only reason you're going through this is because I'm concerned about you. And if I'm concerned about you, put your concerns on me. God, I feel it. That's why the Hebrew boys could say, the God we serve is able to deliver us out of the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand. But when I look over my history and see from whence I'm coming, from my armies being defeated, the king being decapitated, his sons being decapitated, the king being humiliated, the temple being desecrated, my name's changed from Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. From my God Jehovah-istic names to heathen names. And then being castrated too, I got another clause because I got another concern. And that is, if not, I'm still not going to bow. God heard the if not because they cast all their cares on him. And if you ever want him to show up in the fire, cast your cares on him. And when you come out, there will not be a singe, or you won't even smell of smoke. I feel like lifting him up. I need you to touch somebody and say, give God praise for your enemies. Give God praise for folk who don't like you. They roll things out quicker. You get to your blessing quicker. You get to your destination quicker. Touch somebody else and tell them, for what I'm going through, I'm going somewhere. I'm going somewhere. I need you to look at somebody that's sleeping and tell them, I'm going somewhere. Look at somebody that's siddy and cute and tell them, I'm going somewhere. For the hell I'm going through, my exaltation must be enormous. Oh God, anxiety then is self-contradiction. It's self-contradiction to true humility, because unbelief is an exalting of self against God, and one ends up depending on self and failing to trust God. Can I preach like I feel it? Sometimes it's coming quicker than I can verbalize it. Now, many times we have, in the promulgation of our preaching, in our expostulation of faith at the expense of the word of God, and many times we'll tell the church, when I'm coming to get your cash, I say, now you got to sow in the city of refuge because it's good soil. Now I want you to understand that God is not like man, and when he is orchestrating things, he don't have to have good soil. Notice, if you will, Abraham is seeding, and Abraham is seeding into good soil called Hagar. But Hagar is not the child that God wants him to seed in. God is not sending him to seed in good soil. God is sending him to seed in barren soil. And it is out of barren soil comes Isaac. When God is handling your business, you ain't got to seed in good soil. You can seed wherever God told you to. I feel a breakthrough coming. I feel a breakthrough in this house. I'll tell folk many times, y'all just rest a little bit. I'm almost there, Pat. You got to understand this, that God is orchestrating your life. And you don't have to go to a big city. Seth, when you get out of here, you don't have to go to a major market. You can go to anywhere God sends you and let God give the increase. I feel like preaching here. Give somebody a high five and say, quit looking like Lot at the fine plains of Sodom, because when you got God with you, you ain't got to go down to Sodom and Gomorrah. You can go wherever you want to and still be rich. Oh God, I feel it here. And the humbling process now has allowed, is using it to accomplish his purpose. And he's doing it in our lives, and he has it and has to have it under control. How could I be so far out? It's because of God. He has to bring you to the point where you almost lose your mind in order to change your mind. The thing I love about about God is he's not like the pilot. Y'all rest a little bit, because sometimes you in the plane and it's tumultuous, and the plane is bouncing around like a ping pong ball, and as bad as it is, all you want to hear is a voice. If he comes over the sound system and says, this is going to last 15 more minutes, or don't worry about it, we're just coming over the Rockies, talk to me and I'll feel better. I'm scared, but if you talk to me, I'll get a better feeling about what I'm going through. At least somebody in here knows what's going on. Well, that's what I like about God, because he knows it's tumultuous, because he's the one blowing the winds. But he says, cast your cares upon me. Don't act like you ain't afraid, because I know you're afraid, but put it on me and I'll take it through, because there's going to be another voice. Enter the devil. I feel like preaching now. Be sober. Touch somebody. Say, this ain't time to get drunk. When I heard the sister died suddenly while I was sitting on that plane, I said, man, maybe I ought to get me a rum and coke or something up in here. I need something. This woman is, and a voice said to me, you better leave that alone. That ain't gonna help nothing up in here. You better lean on me. That's why he said, be sober. Touch your neighbor and say, I don't need nobody's arms right now, because I'm vulnerable. I don't need no kisses right now, because I'm vulnerable. I don't need no new friends right now, because I'm vulnerable. I need to be sober. I feel like preaching now. I don't need to go to no party right now. I need to work through. I don't need no visits from you right now, because I'm vulnerable. I'm looking through my phone book now because of the hell I'm going through, and I'm trying to find somebody to give me comfort. But I feel the Lord is saying, get your finger out the phone book and get your knees on the ground, because you need to be sober and vigilant. You need to control and avoid the psychological pitfall, and you need to stay awake and be watchful, because the diabolus from Diabella is coming to seek whom he may devour. He is a slanderer, he's an accuser, he's a defamer, and he's coming now in a critical time when God's got you going through to whisper to you, it's time to bail out. Haven't you discovered in the middle of your greatest test, you'll tend to have a double mind? And God said, no, be sober, be vigilant. And if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth freely and upbraideth not. I know what you're going through. Just ask me how to go through it, because on the other side of it, I've got exaltation. I've got something for you that you're able to handle. I feel like lifting him up. Give somebody a high five and say, I'm so glad that hungry beast can't eat everybody. The word in the text is to swallow down. He wants to mess up your mind so you're no good to God. He wants to mess up your mind so you're no good to yourself. He wants to mess up your mind so you're no good to others. But I've got my mind made up. I'm on my way up, and I've got my mind settled, because a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, and don't him expect to receive anything from the Lord. But I'm halfway through this journey of submission, and I'm almost to the place of exaltation, and I'm not gonna let no talking devil talk me out of my blessing. I feel like preaching. Give somebody a high five and say, you're too close now to back up any longer. So while I'm hurting, while I'm struggling, while I'm trying to hold hold on. God still tells me, resist the devil. I feel like shouting. Give somebody a high five. Say, I know you're going through something, but you aren't too weak to resist the devil. You still have enough power to tell the devil, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Though he step on me, I'm still going to lift him up. That's why you resist him. When you look him in the face and say, I will bless the Lord at all. I feel like shouting in here. I feel like lifting him up. Tell your neighbor, stand your ground. Tell your neighbor, take courage. Tell your neighbor, don't be a coward. Something wonderful's getting ready to happen in your life. Tell your neighbor, be steadfast, unmovable, always abiding in the word of the Lord. I feel the Holy Ghost here. The energy of the Spirit declares, I have a piece of the rock, because I heard him say, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I need 3 or 4 people in front. Lock your elbows together. Lock them in together. Lock them in together. And that's what the Greeks would do. They would have a flanks, and they'd come to the enemy. I'm weak, but I still have enough power to praise the name of the Lord. I might be weak, but I still have enough strength to see my vision come to pass. I might be weak, but I still have enough in me to glorify the name of the Lord. For I heard him say, a little while. I feel like preaching. Give somebody a high five. He said, in due time, it's my time now. In due time, it's my time. It's not a wish. It's not a petition. It's a matter of fact that now I'm coming closer to the exaltation. And what is it? I'll make you perfect, that no defect is in you, and I'll establish you. Give somebody a high five. Say, it's gonna make you stronger. You got to go through it. You got to pay your dues. You got to lift him up in the middle of it all. The next time the enemy comes your way, you look him in the face and say, didn't I tell you? No. Didn't I tell you? The victory shall be mine. You thought I'd be dead, but I'm still here. I'm still lifting up. I'm still praising the name of the Lord. You thought I was out, but you're the one out. I'm the one in. I'm in his glory. I'm in his grace. I'm in his power. I'm in his might. I'm in his strength. I'm in his joy. The joy of the Lord. say about Jesus? What do you say about Jesus? He's all right. 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 All right, all right. All right, all right. All right, all right. All right, all right. All right. All right. All right. He's all right. He's all right. He's all right as a doctor. He's all right as a lawyer. He's all right as a keeper. He's all right as a savior. What do you say about Jesus? 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 Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you? I said everything be all right. It's gonna be all right, Sister Jerry. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. Woo! I feel a shout coming home. I feel a dance coming home. Somebody's been going through, but the exaltation is coming.